It's certainly a pleasure to have the opportunity to keynote the World Blockchain Summit, especially here, because today, in the world of blockchain, all roads lead to Dubai, clearly the emerging blockchain capital of the world. And as we saw in Wessam Luta's very impressive presentation, not only is Dubai already a city of the future, but it is accelerating even faster into the future. As a technology futurist for the past 30 years, I've learned the importance of heeding the words of that great American philosopher and Hall of Fame baseball player, Yogi Berra, who is as famous for his quotes as he was for his baseball, one of which is very relevant. Making predictions is very hard, especially about the future. And as someone who's been making predictions about the future for many years, I have to admit they haven't always been well accepted. For example, about 20 years ago, I was speaking to a group of manufacturing executives about this emerging technology called the World Wide Web. And to demonstrate it, I logged on to Amazon.com, ordered a copy of my most recent book, and had it shipped to the president of the Trade Association. And at the end of the demonstration said, "So what do you think?" One of the executives raised his hand and he said, "Jack, that was absolutely fascinating, but help me understand. What has this got to do with us? We're manufacturers. We don't sell books." A little bit later, I was speaking, I think it might have been the same year, at a technology conference. And I described a scenario of the new future of this emerging business practice called e-commerce. After my presentation, a fellow came up and collared me and said, "Jack," he said, "I like your optimism and your enthusiasm about the future, but there's obviously a few things you don't understand about technology." And I said, "Well, by all means, please enlighten me." And he said, "Well, we don't really even have the processing power. We may never have the bandwidth, and we'll surely never have the security. So this crazy notion you're peddling that someday people are going to sit at their computers and do their banking electronically online will never happen. It simply can't be done." Well, whether you choose not to believe my predictions because you don't think they apply to your business, or because you simply don't think they're technologically possible, nevertheless, I'm going to take a chance and go out on a limb today and make a few predictions. So please, join me on a short trip to the near future. In our first scene, a preteen needs orthodontic work. But she and her parents don't just go to the nearest orthodontist or one a friend or relative recommends. Instead, they post an online request for proposals that can only be seen by nearby registered orthodontists and receive several such proposals, each of which states the qualifications of the orthodontist and a recommended treatment plan. After speaking to a couple of the orthodontists by phone, they select one to meet with in person. Once they've reviewed the treatment plan and payment schedule with the orthodontist, they authorize it electronically via digital signatures on their flexible smartphones. The family's healthcare insurance makes progress payments directly deposited into the orthodontist's account immediately upon completion of each visit. The family makes their co-payments using airline frequent flyer miles, and at no point is any paperwork required in the entire process. In our second scene, an aircraft is halfway across the ocean when it detects that a critical part must be replaced on arrival. The airline's advanced procurement system scans the internet to identify Civil Aviation Authority approved providers of that required part. The system then negotiates pricing, terms, and conditions, selects a provider, and incorporates those terms into a legally enforceable online smart contract, on completion of which the part's design is then downloaded to a 3D printer at the airport, and the part is waiting at the gate when the aircraft arrives. In our third scene, a young couple is buying a new home. Perhaps Wessam Luta's son that he referred to. They first solicit offers from qualified mortgage providers by authorizing them to securely review their online credit histories. Each mortgage provider responds with an approval for a specified purchase price range. The couple then visits houses via virtual reality and selects one they'll go to see in person. On their way to the house, they request a title search to be done and ask each mortgage provider to please provide a mortgage plan for this specific property. On arrival, they're delighted that the house is just as nice as they had hoped. They agree on a purchase price with the seller. Select a mortgage plan. Since the title search has been completed by this time, they close the deal on the spot, again, via digital signatures on their smartphones. No paperwork, no brokers, no attorneys. And in fact, no keys are even exchanged, because the house and all its systems are now controlled via their own biometrics, fingerprints, voice prints, retinal scans. What will make all of these phenomenal innovations possible? Well, certainly a number of technologies come into play. 3D printing, virtual reality, biometrics. But there is one technology that runs through all of these examples. And many have already recognized that this technology is the most significant to emerge since the internet itself. This technology doesn't just enable improvements in specific areas, it facilitates the digital transformation of entire business and social ecosystems. Healthcare, transportation, manufacturing, financial services, real estate are just a few of the many potential applications of this technology across every industry, including yours. And while this technology has been around for nearly a decade now, most people around the world, most executive decision makers, have only really started to hear about it in the past year or two. It's called blockchain technology. And no less prestigious a publication than The Economist magazine has stated that blockchain is quite simply the most important advance in record keeping since the invention of the double-entry bookkeeping system in Florence, Italy in 1494, over 500 years ago. When I had the privilege of keynoting at the Global Blockchain Week conference in London earlier this year, I pointed out that wherever people, processes, businesses, governments, or the social good requires proof of identity, ownership, transactions, or commitments, blockchain technologies promise to meet those needs with a degree of trust and integrity never before possible. Now, how does blockchain do this? Blockchain technologies do four key things that we've not been able to do nearly so well and together previously. First, they provide a permanent, immutable, signed and time-stamped record of identity, ownership, transactions or commitments. Secondly, that record can then be shared among two or more entities, people, businesses, other organizations, what have you, without any one of the entities in that ecosystem having to depend on any one of the others or having to pay a third-party intermediary to facilitate the sharing of that information. Third, the information can be made globally available to all of the authorized participants with complete transparency for everyone authorized to see it and the authority to update that information for that subset of those who are authorized to do so. At the same time, it provides unhackable security against those unauthorized to update that information or even see it. Now, as soon as I use the word unhackable, lots of people say, well, given enough time and resources, any computer can be hacked. And that's why blockchain data is not stored on any computer. It's stored on many computers. Depending on the implementation of blockchain, identical copies of the blockchain data are stored on anywhere from dozens to hundreds to thousands of computers all over the internet. Every time a new record is added to the blockchain, that information is synchronized to all of those computers within minutes, if not seconds, depending again on the nature of the implementation. The world's most advanced cryptographic and synchronization technologies are used to ensure that all of those copies of the blockchain remain identical to every other copy.